Evidently, I had myself muted. I am sorry, folks. Let me do that again. Um, Good morning. It's Sunday. Means it's stream time on Elfbait. Today, I'm going to be doing something a little bit different. I'm going to um, be streaming a build of a dungeon using Dungeondraft. Dungeondraft is a tool I've talked about a lot on the channel here and there. And I figured it was time to show it off. I did try this once before, but it killed my old computer. So what is Dungeondraft? Dungeondraft is one of two programs I use by a indie designer called Megasploot is the company. The other is Wonderdraft, which I draw my world maps with. But Dungeondraft is a simple to use, pretty straightforward, nicely detailed, maybe not the most powerful, but certainly does the trick dungeon mapper. It's full color. It's done in sort of a cartoony style, so it's a little clearer than you might get with like a full art render. But it's a little bit. It's certainly more detailed than just a black and white line map. Um, it is modifiable. There are asset packs you can get for it. I haven't used any of those. I've seen some asset packs that make it look just as nice as the WotC maps that you'll see in their full color maps in their books. And whether or not you like those, that's beside the point. They're beautiful maps and they're really well done. I don't use those because for me it's more of a tool, and it's a great tool to get a dungeon laid out. I can add some bits and pieces here that help me tell the story of the dungeon when I'm running that dungeon. There's a lot of furnishings and stuff that I can put into the map that can help me kind of remember the tone in shorthand. I mean, I usually write this stuff down, but it's also there on the map for me. It also helps my players, especially now that we're playing a virtual environment. Um, it helps my players get into the map. So there's the second intro with the mute button off. Let me say good morning to Sayla Kip, Daniel Kearney, and O'Neill Flynn. Good morning, folks. Welcome. So I've got it loaded up in my other screen here. What I'm going to do is once I get going, hey, Cody, good morning. I'm going to go ahead and disappear off the screen here and just present the Dungeondraft screen. What I thought might be fun is if folks in the chat here would go ahead and offer ideas for the type of dungeon or for rooms or features that we put in, and also ask questions along the way about Dungeondraft. I've used it quite a bit. I have made some pretty comprehensive maps in Dungeondraft. In fact, let me pull up a couple here and I'll present those as well, just so you can see the kinds of things that we that I have done with Dungeondraft. So let me pull up a few of the ones that I have saved as simple image files. The nice thing about Dungeondraft 2 is you can export your files, and that is always useful as well because you can export them in a number of formats, which then makes them easy for use on VTTs. So let me pull these up here real quick, and then I am going to share a couple of pre-made maps. Let me take a look here. That way you can just kind of see. And the thumbnail for this stream also showed one of the maps, but I want to go ahead and pull it up here. Let me take a look here. All right. So here is the base level for a Zvart fortress that I put into sort of an underdark place. The black over here is the chasm that it sits on the side of. Very simple cliff graphics for showing elevation. Here's the road moving up to the you got the road moving up to the gatehouse. This was the base level. You'll see some staircases in there that lead up to a cave that's perched up on the cliff. That was a giant bat cave that they, um, maintained. Um, but yeah, so this is one map, one of the maps I've done. There are two other levels to this dungeon. There's an upper level which shows off more of the living quarters for the Zvarts, as well as a nasty surprise for the party that was going through here, because there was a low-level drow mage who had taken up residence and was sort of the boss man for the Zvarts. The lower level had pens for animals, um, as well as like mushroom farms and the like. Um, you'll see over on the right, there's a circular chamber that is a garbage dump. The spikes along the side are there because there's an Odiug in there, and there's access to that on the lower level, which is adjacent to the mushroom farm. Um, uh, and so uh, that was all connected. The opening the main chamber, the main entry area was trapped to where the whole floor could fall out and drop into an arena below, sort of Jabba the Hutt style. And there were animal cages on the perimeter that Svarts could then release um, critters into there and watch people get murdered horribly. So it was a fun dungeon to make, but um, it was also easy to make because one of the nice things that Dungeondraft does is allow you to overlay levels to where you can set a transparency. So if you're trying to line up levels of say like a keep or a castle or even like an inn or a house, something like that, it's really easy to do because you can just overlay them. Um, so let me present here another location. Let's see. Okay, and here is another fortress lair area. This is Toad Fort. This is again the ground level of a map. This is a small, kind of semi-destroyed fort that was in the middle of a swamp. It was occupied by bullywugs. This is the bottom level. You can see sort of in the upper right where part of the keep has fallen away into the water and the muck, and they've sort of set up a hasty defense with some spiked um, barriers there that kind of prevent some critters from getting into it. Um, but yeah, it was a fun module, a fun dungeon to make. This also has a sub level and 2 levels above it that I'm not going to show, but this is just kind of a brief overview. So one thing that Dungeondraft also has that you can do with it, which is kind of fun, is you can change the colors so you can present more of a traditional map if that was your desire here. So what we've got here is a map that's been sepia toned and kind of toned down, because you could this one is all numbered and everything. This is a quick reference one. So there are certainly a lot of options you can do with Dungeondraft. I've used Dungeondraft to do straight black and white maps as well, and so that does help. There are some things that Dungeondraft doesn't do, but there are easy fixes for that. For example, Dungeondraft does not have a symbol in its library for a secret door. It has doors and it has windows, but it does not have a symbol for a secret door. And so you then have to sort of go in with the text tool and lay in your S's for where your secret doors are going to be, which is not a bad thing to have to do. It's really neither here nor there. The nice thing is you can do that on an overlay. Morning, Dirty History and Hobbies. You can do that on an overlay that allows you to hide it from your players when you're running this, say, as a VTT or something. They'll just see the hallway with the walls. couple other things that are a little wonky, and I'll show this when we start mapping. But overall, I'm very happy with the tool as far as dungeon design tools. It is super easy to use. Uh, doesn't require much of a learning curve at all. And so, hands down for accessibility and usability, it's tops. Um, there are, again, better programs, more powerful programs out there, but those take a lot more work. And so let's see, there's one more map I wanted to share if I could find it. Should have had it ready. I know, bad host. Let's see if I can find it. My maps are not well organized. Let's take a look here. Looking for a more, I've got a more mundane structure map that I did. Maybe it's not on this particular save folder. Anyways, um, well, neither here nor there. So let's go ahead and do this. Looks like we got 6 people watching. I'm going to go ahead and clear this off the page, and we're going to go ahead and pull up Dungeondraft here, and I will disappear from the camera, and like I've already done, and we will. I'll dive into Dungeondraft with a blank map, and we'll go from there. While I'm setting this up, feel free to throw into the chat there any suggestions for the type of map or anything that you'd like to make. By all means, let's go ahead and collaborate on this. So here we have the opening screen for Dungeondraft. We've got the Mega Sploot logo, which is a corgi splooting, thus the name. Now, when you load the program, you'll have open, you'll have new. Assets is a place where you can pull in your asset packs. I don't have any, like I said. And they have like an about, which is cool. So open will pull up a folder, accesses your save folder. New will pull up a menu here where we can set the parameters of our map. Width, height, start with the map wizard. That's kind of fun. They have a map wizard that'll do some work for you. Disable building wear. So these are all good. It has templates for paper sizes. It actually has templates for TV sizes, which is kind of cool if you're using it for a VTT. It's always useful. I haven't found any need to really use that though. So I'm going to cancel out of this for now. Also, the menu up here brings up some cool stuff. You got open recent, so there's a quick access to a lot of your recent maps you've done. Preferences, this is where you can go in and change some of the stuff for your interface. Edit object tags, so you can actually go through and change the names of some of the objects and the like. That's always neat. Open user folder, that's just accesses your file on your computer. Packaging custom assets. So you can put things together in your own packages. So dirty history and hobbies. I do like doing hand-drawn maps. The problem with that comes down to just place and time a lot. It's really easy for me to keep a window open and draw it using a digital tool nowadays. Instead of having to find room to have a pad of paper out or anything like that. Yeah, I'm not. I used to use Auto Realm for world maps, but I feel like Wonderdraft, which is the world mapping, is just as good as Auto Realm, but now it has the option for color. So, all right. So real quick here, I found the inn that I was talking about. So here's I'm going to pull this up in Wonderdraft so I can show you the leveling and layering. So uh, let's go up to the main level. So here is the inn that one of the PCs in my current game grew up in, sort of um, the kind of the core for the game. I've mapped out the inn and its associate buildings here. So I've zoomed it out to where you can see I've got all the stockyards and everything because it's a pretty substantial thing. But if I zoom in, you can see that we've got chandeliers hanging up here. We've got tables with various things strewn about them. There's an office, a back office. There's a kitchen. There's storage. There's the stairs down to the pantry. We got the staircase going up to the guest rooms, the staircase going up to the family's quarters. If we go down a level, there's a little arrow down here in the corner. This shifts up and down a level. We got the basement. We've got the hidden treasure chamber that the party has put in there. We got a well in the basement. It's well lit. We have an escape tunnel. If you look here, this escape tunnel goes out into the yard here. There's also a magic circle down here that was placed by the party because, well, they're adventurers and it helps them with their base of operations. Let's see. Yeah, I mean, if you're looking for simulating TSR maps, that's all well and cool. And when I do my hand drawn maps, I tend to do that. So going up, we have the upstairs. You can see in the upstairs we have a common room for our guests. The default scale for Dungeondraft is a 5-foot square. So if you're doing 10-foot hallways, always remember to do them 2 wide. Got a bunch of private rooms, as well as a private dining hall. You'll notice this has even got little graphics for animal heads mounted on the walls. I always like to include little details like a broom closet. And so the staircase from down below from the common room goes up to this level and this level only behind this door here. And if you hear a dog barking, I apologize. He's a doofus. The private staircase that goes up to the family level does stop at this level. Of course, that way the family can get up here if they need to because they're the ones running it. This black gap in the middle, this is an open space that overlooks the common room. You'll notice that the 2 chandeliers line up with the chandeliers that are down below. And then the staircase continues up to the family's floor. And you get up to family's floor, you've got their little main common room. You've got bedrooms. You've got their hearth and family dining and the like. Is the master bedroom. There's even, I think the key here is there was also some servants' quarters up here because, well, the servants, they're like family. We even got a closet. But yeah, so these sorts of maps are easily done in Dungeondraft, and because a lot of the assets can be tweaked and layering is a thing, you can accomplish some really neat, fun things with the map. You'll notice I have a chimney marked out here. This is just using the wall tool. When I have fireplaces and the like in maps, I do try to keep in mind where the chimney is because chimneys can be access points or exit points. If we kind of go back here, you can see that the grounds, we've got the stable where guests' horses would be stabled up, as well as the family's horses, and we got a paddock for them with natural water source. We got a pig pen. We have like a stable hands home. It's a little wood burning, a little stove and a bed. We got over here. We got another one, a little slightly bigger. This one is going to have a second floor. I just haven't mapped it out yet. There's going to be basically a loft space above this kitchen space for the bed. Um, Little garden patch. We have the refuse pile. Um, Gates out to the back paddock, and this part isn't fully mapped because it would be a rather extensive area. We've got cows and sheep and feed and water troughs and a barn for them. So it's you can get really detailed. I've got foliage laid around here. The reason being is that let's say that in the course of the campaign, this inn comes under attack, or is raided for any reason. The players can know what they have around them to mount a defense. I also know what is around them to show where people could sneak in. I mean, we have a road going past the inn here. Um, we have a clump of trees. We have a clump of trees. These both would provide hiding places for attackers or aggressors. So there's a lot of options here. Let's see. Let's see. Well, yeah. I mean, we all have skills, and again, I'm not. There's nothing wrong with drawing hand drawn maps. I love doing it. Um, I've just found that digital tools are very useful, especially considering I rarely have a chance to play in person anymore, and so these are easier for me to present to my players. Um, because to do a hand drawn map this way, I would have to draw it, I would have to scan it, and then it ends up being easier for me. Uh, let's see. So we've got, as far as suggestions, Cody has suggested a tomb of a long dead powerful wizard. May contain his essence. An alien starship buried in centuries. So that is one thing that basic dungeon draft has trouble with. It does fantasy and it does fantasy. It doesn't do anything else. There may be asset packs out there that allow it to do something else. I have found that Dungeon Fog is really good for sci-fi maps, and I'll show some of those off sometime. And maybe I'll do a similar feature for Dungeon Draft or Dungeon Fog, excuse me. But it's a little wonkier and harder to use, in my opinion. Let's see, forgotten things, empty places, old places. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and clear this one off. And then let's see. Oh, here's an interesting example. Uh, One of my players played a sort of islander orc, and the party spent a lot of time traveling around in their boat because it was a nautical campaign. And so they had a big sort of double canoed outrigger style boat with living quarters inside. So I decided to map it because they might get attacked. So you could have Sogan and stuff like that come on board, other sea creatures, or attacking from the water. And here you have the base level, and then I do the upper level. Really, maybe a little bit of overkill to do the upper level, but you never know where the fight's going to go. So that's another one. So boats are certainly a thing. I have seen a lot of maps that are out there for Dungeon Draft that feature various ships and the like full pirate ships. Let's see. What else do we got here? The mysterious cave. This is just a play around map that I've been working on. You can see here where I've integrated the S's for the secret doors. Um, if you go up a level, here we have the cave entrance. Um, and then if you go down a level, there's the man-made portion that it hides. If things look a little weird on this, that is because this map was designed to be done in This map was designed to be done as a black and white map. Let me see if I can actually get that to show up here. Let's see. Remember how I did that. Map settings. So for map settings, we can go camera filter, print friendly, and suddenly we have a black and white map. You still retain the details, but now your map is black and white and would be much more at home, say, in a printed module or something. You can also go sepia, which is weird because it has that weird halo like many sepias do. And then we go none and we have no filter. Now, I found the reason that some of these colors are really off is I found that trying to get them to look right in the print friendly, I had to tweak a lot of the colors because the mid grades often disappear in the print friendly. So, for example, to get the water to actually show as something with some color gradient or some tonal gradient here, I had to do really dark blacks and blues um, for this background to look like a kind of mottled rock tone that showed the inside of the cliff here. Also had to do this weird kind of spacey purpley look. Um, but I think it does a really good job when you pull up, say, like a map like this, and you can also see that in the black and white, those text boxes for the secret doors blend in a much more traditional D&D map style. You could also simulate the old style doors in a way by doing um, like an empty text square that has a bordered outline, and then you'd get just the little rectangles. Um, so that's a thing. So that is enough of that. Let's see. Let's see. And pyramid that has recently been discovered buried under a hill. Okay. So, seeing as Cody is the only one who suggested anything, um, we're going to go ahead and start with just a 50 tile by 50 tile, the standard. And this is what we get. We get just a basic 50 by 50. And considering these are each 5-foot squares, we really end up with, you know, we end up with effectively 25 10-foot squares. So this is a 250 by 250 scale feet. All right, so the first thing we probably want to do is set some terrain. So if we're going with a desert, we have sand, um, which is, I believe, what we already have on there. The sand, you can see here we have presets. Now that sand is kind of basic, um, but it'll work. It's not as light and sandy as one might want, but um, we can mess it up a bit because we can also go ahead and throw in rocky terrain. No, we don't want the whole thing to be rocky. No, go back, sand. All right, we want, all right, so we want the base. There's the sand that I was looking for. All right, so then terrain sand, terrain rocky. So if we use this rocky terrain brush and we go with a very large brush and we just start to see if we can slam it in there and it'll be all super hardcore and intense. We can lower this intensity though, and then as we hold the button, it'll start to kind of come in. That's maybe a little too basic. And so we can add some variation. Now, what I usually end up doing is just kind of splotting down some of this stuff, and then what I'll do is I'll come back with another sand tone, spray it down, try and remove anything that looks a little too artificial. Yeah, but and then kind of go back and add a little bit more in there. That circle fact thing is really pissing me off. It's being way too circular. Um, off. All right. So smooth blending off. Yeah, there we go. This will do it a little bit better. I still don't like that circle, but we can kind of break that up. There we go. That way it's not so basic and flat. All this. Yeah, there we go. I'm going to break up some of that regularity, but now our base map looks like something a little bit more alive. All right, so that's our terrain. We're not going to need water, I don't imagine, although there might be water in the lower level. Happy sand. Yeah, we're going to put a little bit of happy sand over here. It's very easy to get Bob Rossi. This is an interesting one. The layer tool, this is kind of a weird one. This is how you draw in things like bubbling acid or lava or things like that, ash and stuff. We can also go ahead and draw shapes. Yeah, everything from a blood streak tool to a chain. Um, this is how we do cliffs. We got palisades, tracks, good for mines. You've got rails without ties. You have rope. You have a rope and then a thick rope. Shadow. This is really cool for doing rooms that have multiple levels within the room. So let's say you have a raised platform in a chamber, but it doesn't go up to the next level, or you just want to show it self-contained in that room. You can then lay down some shadow underneath a wall, extra shadow under a wall to kind of show some extra dimensionality to it. These stairs are really great for doing complex, like rounded tower stairs and the like. We got them both in wood and in stone, railed and unrailed. Um, we have a wagon trail, great for doing wilderness maps. And there is a wooden bridge tool, nice and rickety, just what everybody wants. And a wooden fence. So this wooden fence tool is really great. I used that when I was doing the inn for the paddocks that are outside. And then the back tool. All right, so we've got, we're going to go into the design tool here. So if we are going to do our pyramid, and we should start with the ground level. So there are two ways to go about drawing chambers. We can use the build tool, in which case we get to pick our ground. Um, let's go with these concrete squares. And then the cool thing is we can change the color of these to make them maybe a little bit more tomb-like. And then we can pick our walls. And I think for our tomb wall, let's go with the concrete wall. And then we'll also make that into a sandy color, but we'll do it a little darker. Not important if you're trying to do the black and white ones, but here we go. All right, you'll notice down here we also have, we can turn the grid on and off. We can turn the snap on and off. That's important for when you're doing complex rooms or trying to break the grid for any reason. We can turn lighting on and off, which is nice because sometimes you don't want your lighting showing and it's annoying. So this here is the ground level. This kind of drops between layers, and then this will go up and down mapped levels. So we're starting with the ground level here. So I'm going to show how you can draw a basic room. And one way we can do this is we can start by just doing our whole ground floor. And the nice thing is, I really dig this, is that it will show you how many squares you're going when you're doing this. So you can easily do a perfect square if you want to do this. Is a 30 by 30. Let's just call it good. So 30 by 30. There's our interior. I think that's pretty decent looking for the interior of a tomb. So one other thing that is kind of frustrating slash annoying is that we cannot change the wall thickness. Wall thickness would be a great thing to be able to control in this, but we cannot. So to do really thick walls, you do have to use some interesting tricks where you would have to like draw in a wall and then fill the other wall with fill the interior of the wall with another texture to make it stand out. So here we have our base interior for our tomb, and I'm going to zoom in a little bit. You can see it gets a little busy on the naked eye. If we turn the grid off, it doesn't get much better. We could change the floor inside. We can go to edit points, change the floor, select our room, and then it becomes that. And then we could also then go ahead and change it to our sandy color for our interior space. And there we go. So it does have a number of different tiles we can use. That one might be a little bit better, actually. Yeah, rubble filled double was a fairly decent building technique, but as far as mapping goes, um, it is much more convenient to be able to just modify the thickness of the wall. Let me show you what I'm talking about. So we go over to the wall tool here, and let me just, if I was to want to change the thickness of this wall, I would have to map out. Let's just go around and around and around. And call it good. So there's our wall thickness. That's a 10-foot thick wall. And then I would have to go ahead and pull in something, say like this tool here, which is the pattern shape. I can also change the color, so we can go with like a dark brown, and then I can fill this. And right now I'm just using a very simple rectangular fill, but you can actually do circles, or you can use um, the basically freeform. Did I get that right? 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 10. That is wrong. Oh well. Let's see. Somehow my dungeon is small is off kilter. Oh well. So right there we have a basic interior for our tomb. Now, if we want to make this like thick walled and heavy, we can do this a couple ways. Right now, the easiest way would be to go to start editing points, and we can edit our wall space. So we could do, say, this. We'll draw this out, create another point, go back, go back. That's one way to do it. The other way would be, this is if we wanted to keep that contiguous wall, and don't want to have any weird overlays, because then we can also then go ahead and just add in another one. And if we're going to do this as a tomb, we can do it nice and maze-like. And what we'll do is we'll go from here. And of course, we'll go back and fill these walls later, but we won't worry about that right now. Now this gets a little tricky because right now we're building off an existing wall, so we don't get any overlap. However, if I was to go to the wall tool right now and just draw a straight up wall, you'll notice that, and I'll zoom in really close so you can see this. If I draw a new wall here, you'll see that there is sort of an overlap. And while it's not overly obvious there at the ends here, it becomes obvious. Now it becomes less so if we turn the bevel off. Let me undo here and undo. If I go in to do this, and then I do this, it's not quite as bad. I mean, you can still see that there's a bit of an overlay there, and your cagey players may figure out that there is a secret door if you're trying to hide it, but that's a way to do that. So um, you can also um, change wall structures and stuff as you're going along. Uh, there is not a way to make a section of wall disappear on its own. So that's another thing. You can't like highlight a section and just have it go invisible to where you can create an opening where there isn't one. The only way to really do that would be to use something like, the archway, which is a pain in the ass. But once you get used to using the tool, it's pretty simple. So we're building a tomb here. Let's focus on some details. So we got doors. While I have the doors up, um, what we can do is we can let's assume this is a secret door, and we'll leave that as just a solid wall. So there's a secret door on the base of the tomb that allows people to get into. It's a 15-foot wide passage. It enters into this larger chamber. So first thing that I would do if I was building this is let's go ahead and think about what's in the room. So what should we have in the opening chamber, folks? Throw out some ideas and I'll see if I can recreate them in Dungeondraft. Uh, let's see. Anybody? Anybody? Let's see. You're leaving me hanging here, folks. All right. So an entry chamber in a tomb. Let's see. Probably going to have some form of statue. So we can go. I pulled up the assets here. A chute that leads to an upper level, but is also a trap. So a chute in this room that goes up. We can definitely put that in. But as far as features of the room goes, let's see. So we could do statues here. We could put. I mean, I'll just pick some random statue. Here's a nice bug statue. We all know that Temple of Apshai is a favorite of mine. It's not wanting to. So we can resize it by holding down Shift and Alt at the same time. And then if you mouse wheel it, it will change around. Now, if I go turn off the snap, I can place it more central to where it's facing the entrance. And then, so we have coming into the, oh, dirty history, history and hobbies. The question was what kind of features in this first chamber if we're going to build a tomb. So kind of skipped ahead. Cody had suggested a chute to an upper level, which is also a trap. Um, and that's something I'm definitely keeping in mind. Uh, but so we have this bug statue here. So we got a bug statue. You come in, you got a bug statue. Um, you're gonna have to sneak past it, kind of going this way. I mean, if you're coming in, you've only got like a 5 foot gap, and then this open chamber around here. So, what do we put in the rest of the open chamber? Um, and keep in mind, I'm really just playing around, trying to show this tool off and show what you can do with it. Um, we can. Why don't we place a pillar or two or three in the room just to kind of hold the ceiling up? So because we got a wall here, but this is an open space, and there's a lot of there's a lot of pyramid on top. So we'll put two pillars there, kind of supporting the ceiling for this alcove that's off to the side. So uh, here we go. Coming in from the desert into this chamber, having found your way in and having found sanctuary, perhaps there is a fountain of some sort. Salvation. Yeah, that's kind of. I think we're on the same page there. Dirty history and hobbies. So we can place in. Not all the assets are colorable, but here, why don't we do this one? It's a nice wall font. We can place it here. It's in an alcove off to the side. Um, we can also go to the lighting tool, and why don't we place a couple of small braziers on either side of it? So now we have a cool entry. We've got a clear path of egress out of the chamber, which is past this bug statue, which may or may not be a problem. We have this fountain on the side. In fact, I'm going to go ahead and merge this into the wall a little bit. I'm going to snap it off the grid here and see if you see. The nice thing is currently it's set to be below the wall. So I can make the back part of it sink into the wall so it looks like it's really butted directly up against the wall. And then we can also do that similarly with these braziers. Set them up slightly more against the wall. If we're adding more splendor here, we do have a decor tab here. So this is a place where we would get things like, animal heads, paintings, and stuff like that. Trying to remember how I did curtains before. I think for curtains, and this is for me, this is fun. For some people, it's annoying. For me, it's a matter of um, adapting elements. And I believe the way I did curtains before was actually using uh, the ship tools. And then kind of adapting how those fit. I don't want to stop scrolling through the options. All right. So we can shrink this down to where it doesn't stick out into the room so far. And we can place those to either side. And if I zoom in on the map, it kind of looks like we now have curtains there. There are other options we could use in there. Um, and then see if I can get this to go any more square than it is. It's annoying. We'll have that slip back. Yeah. So an inviting little space. Now, any cruel DM could easily make something happen at that fountain, or maybe the fountain itself is good, is beneficent. It could be simply a supply of water, but maybe because this is some sort of holy, temple, tomb, whatever, it's possible that that water is even a healing water. So right at the beginning of this potential of this tomb adventure, we present to our players the possibility of having sort of a place they can return to heal up if they want to. We can also make it challenging initially, and maybe a portent for the rest of the adventure if we decided to make, say, the statue into some sort of a monster. So, question: do we put a doorway in this passage, or do we keep it as an open passage? Um, and there are a couple of ways to go about doing that as well. So I will wait for folks to chime in and see if we can get some consensus on this. So, Cody, as far as your shoot idea goes, that would be something to put in on like a map notation. For example, if we were to go ahead and, well, I guess we'll just lay in a T, the classic T for trap, and a capital T if we can. Stupid computer. All right, let's see. There we go. Text box on or off. Let's go ahead and there we go. And then we can grab our text box. Should be able to grab our text box. I said, oh yeah, gotta hit the move. So we grab this, and we can say that there is a trap. We can put it right there, and then in the details of the map of the dungeon, we could talk about how maybe there's a stone block trap that falls out of the ceiling, but it opens up. That stone falls from the floor of a level up above. So should the party trip that trap, they would then have an option to be able to climb up into the next level, but they'd have to figure out a way up there. So I think that's a pretty cool idea. All right, so I got one vote for leaving it open from Daniel. Anybody else want to leave that passage open, or are we going to block it with something? Um, Door, stone block, a barrier. Um, we could also show signs of previous entry. I guess that's another thing to consider. Are we presenting this dungeon as freshly encountered and not broken into? In which case, we want to probably make everything as pristine as possible. We can still add in some elements, as well. There's one cool thing we can do here too. Um, real, I think it's fun at least. All right, let's go to the wall tool, and if we really wanted to make um, this seem like a classic old tomb, we can even put in. And then we go ahead and go to this fill tool. And now there's a stone block that has to be removed to even get into the tomb. We could do something like that. Um, or we could leave that out of the way and just assume that this is open. Let me see about something. Edit points. I think on this is a room map that we did. No, undo. All right. So what I just did is I disappeared the outer wall, because what we're going to do, and it just occurred to me, is we can do this and this and this and this and this, and we get our wall back. Let me edit points, and now we have an opening. Oh, Manfred, you haven't missed too much. We're just starting. So now we have an opening, and because I love dressing the dungeons, let's do this. We're gonna go to our colorable rock. That's lava rock. Let me go to the nice thing is there is believe a colorable tab, so we can take a look and see what all is colorable, which is neat. If I have a rock, that's a bloody water stain. That is not the same thing as a rock. Do I not have a colorable rock? Boo! Soap. Crystals. What I was thinking would be cool, and we can probably adapt some of this blood, is we'll grow this a little bit bigger. We'll color it to match similarly our stone. Sorry about that. Evidently, my Alexa is listening, or my Google is listening, and then we can pepper in some rubble to show that this area is recently unearthed. There we go. So there we go. So we have a tomb that's been opened. We can assume that maybe there was an ancient stone block there that was found to be different from the rest. It's been broken open. The adventurers have been called forth to explore, or maybe this is just where we start the adventure. The adventurers, having followed the map, have broken through the seal, entered into the entry chamber, and here they are. So we're going to leave this open. All right, and so let's do this. Let's go ahead and assume that at some point somebody wanted you to be able to see in here if you're actually inside, or maybe not. No, you know what? Let's leave light sources out of it. We got braziers here, and we can say that those are magical. In fact, when I actually do the lighting tool, in fact, I'll jump in real quick. Here's the light tool. So we can actually set light sources. Here's the neat thing. If we wanted to make it magic light, we can change the light source to where it's green, and we can actually set the range and the intensity to where we can make it to where they just glow slightly. So that little alcove is glowing with an eerie green magical flame, or slightly off magical flame. So now we know that area is illuminated, but it's not illuminated naturally. As the GM using this map, you can see it. You don't have to actually remember that it was there because you've set it yourself shorthand, and your players will see that and go, that's not right. That's not normal. And then they can think about what's going on. All right. So next, our next chamber, let me go ahead and get up here to the wall tool again. So do we want it to be a hallway that we go into after this area, or is it going to be another chamber? because we could extend this hallway out. This was just that initial basic mapping. Um, we could make this very maze-like, which would make sense for a tomb, because we can't have too much empty space below because we still have to be able to support the rest of the pyramid above. Um, and so we could have winding chambers, winding passages with a few chambers, which is really easy to do because all we have to do at that point is just go ahead. Let me turn the snap tool on so I'm not driving myself batty. All we have to do really at this point would be to delete this point, take that over there, and then draw in some more of our wall structure. So, any votes for passages, or do we want to go with another chamber right away? What do we want? Because passages can still be fun. We can still put features in passages. We can trap them. We can have uh, illusions to things on the walls where we maybe there's frescoes or something that are plastered on the walls that can give hints to what's in the tomb. We can have alcoves on the side of a tomb or on the side of a chamber. So what we're looking at too right now, we've got a 10-foot wide passage. So that's going to allow parties to move pretty much two abreast, and it's a pretty standardized dungeon passage. We could take it down to a 5-foot passage later on, of course, because tomb. Uh, So another chamber, the place where they restricted entry to unwanted guests. So we have the entry chamber, and then you're saying more like sort of like an antechamber where we can kind of we like a checkpoint, if I'm reading you correctly. All right, we'd definitely do that. So let's go ahead and stretch this out. We'll add in another deal here, a deal here, and let me go up here. Doop. And then we can make this a relatively small chamber, or we could actually grow it in size to do something like that, to where we have basically this would be a 20 by 25 room. It's kind of an odd shape. I don't know where I seem to have lost 5 feet. So I don't know. But so I would imagine that anything beyond that point should be behind some sort of a door or at least a portcullis or some sort of barrier, um, that curtails um, people going beyond. So, what features do we want to put in this room? If this is the sort of the antechamber, you say is sort of the checkpoint for filtering people out. Is it a guard chamber where we would have had like temple guards posted? Is it sort of a I guess what is it? Stop. Um, what are we putting there? I guess is what I'm asking. What kind of features would have been there during its days of use? I'm assuming some sort of place for guards to wait. So maybe we have a table of some sort and some chairs where they might, depending on how long they're waiting. Again, this is the supervising priest call for more guards. Um, so we are going to need a guard chamber, um, and supervising priest. So um, let's go ahead and continue our decor as well. Let's go ahead and keep our curtain effect going. I think is a good way to go. We have the back wall decorated with some billowing curtains. And then we could say, let's see, lighting. Probably going to need some lights in here again. So maybe another brazier. That is way too small. Clearly, I shrank that down. Let's make it about the same size as these ones for consistency's sake. So maybe a brazier on either end. And don't think that we would have a priest sitting around because, if anything is working security has taught me back in the day, um, they don't like you sitting. Here's a nice decorative table. We will shrink this down. This can be sort of our checkpoint. Imagine our priest standing behind this table, a guard flanking him on either side, and leave weapons or whatever there. Um, so our guards that would be coming in here from another room, probably going to be from deeper in the chamber. Let me take a look here. Do we have? Oh yes, we have an instrument. Um, there is no gong. A gong would be useful. Why is there no gong? But let's see, administration. Oh, this is where you can get a little crazy with the decoration. So we got administration here, which is one of the subtabs. So we can literally have like you know a little jar full of papyrus. Those are things you would put into more of an active place because, of course, this is a tomb that I'm assuming is no longer in use. So things like papyrus and everything, if not properly stored, would have since deteriorated and gone away. So um, next, moving on, I think we should have some sort of a door or a barrier. A couple ways we can go about this. We have the defense tab, which gives us all sorts of weird, which is also kind of fun because, like, if let's say you're doing traps, if you're especially if you were showing ones that had already been sprung, we could literally have buzzsaws coming out of the walls. But or spinning blades of death, um, or even gnarlier, not really saws, but just spinning spikes of death. Um, Dirty history and hobbies. I don't know. There are asset packs. So I'm assuming there is some, but it's not something I've delved into. So I really couldn't answer in terms of formatting and all of that. So this table, just also to keep in mind scale wise, is a good 5+ feet wide. So, all right, portals. So we could go. So with portals, you have anchored, which builds them into walls, or you can go freestanding. So right now we cannot change the size of doors. They're standardized size, but we could do a couple of portcullises like that. Um, and say that there is a gate that bars uh, further entry, and this would have been sort of the stopping point. And then we can kind of move on from there. That way, thinking of this in dungeon terms, we've had a trap, potentially. You'll notice too that anywhere there's a light source, when you're in the grab tool, the select tool here, it'll show the light source points, because it wants to show you where those are. Let's also illuminate our magical braziers there. And you'll see that we now have two little torch lights. Now, the cool thing is you can move those around, so where you can shift your light source. You can also change some of the lighting effects, and so objects can be set to block light or not. Um, so going beyond so we've got a trap, we've got a potential fight if we decide this is going to be an animated statue. We've got, um, depending on how we want to play it, a healing opportunity or a curse opportunity, some sort of magic shenanigans opportunity here with the fountain. And then we have an obstacle. So this is at least a basic bend bars, lift gates kind of an affair, um, to get past, or maybe a pick locks if you decide that the lock is still functional. Um, so going beyond that, what is our next feature? Are we going to remain uh, winding our way through? I imagine that anything that's on this ground level, especially given the features that we've invested here, this pyramid tomb was probably also being used as a temple at some point. And so, because everything we have here sort of suggests that we've got a welcoming space where people can clean themselves and get some fresh water. They have to face an image of maybe a deity or a guardian. There's a checkpoint for priests, where a priest might, check people in, curtail guests. Um, so maybe this ground floor is our temple level. This is where uh, you know services would be held, and maybe is the entry to a tomb below or above. Maybe this particular religion, the tombs are in the upper levels of the pyramid, or maybe we have both. Maybe the upper levels of the pyramid are for the high mucky mucks in their tombs, and then down below we have like a catacomb or something. We can visit that as we go. So throw out some ideas, folks. I mean, there are 8 of you. What's our next chamber? Just to kind of recap, we've got an entry chamber with a large trap area. It's about a 15 by 10, a 10 by 15 area that's kind of covered by this trap mark. Not exactly. It's more of a little bit more than like a 10 by 10. Um, and then we have a potential fight with a animated statue or some other statue effect. Now, also, do we have undead guards here, or is this just sort of that creepy lead in to the adventure, to the dungeon, where we're like, oh, it's an empty space where it tells us what was going on here, but everything that's really nasty is probably behind these locked doors. Any suggestions for what should be beyond this gate? What is our next chamber in there in our temple complex? A creepy room. Okay. So creepy in what sense? I mean, certainly in the context of a temple, creepy room could be intentionally creepy, sort of a mysteries sort of a thing, or it could be creepy as in it's fallen apart. Um, we can also use the decor here to add some features to the walls to make it to symbolize that maybe we have some fresco action going on. Let's do that. So let's say we've gone past the gate, and on the walls. Now what I'm using here is a painting asset that I'm sinking back against the wall to where we just see sort of the hint of something else. There we go. So we got frescoes on either side leading up to our next chamber. Um, I'm going to do something because it's fun that will add some dimensionality and depth here. What I'm going to do is add in uh, some stairs. Dried heads. Okay, we can definitely go with dried heads. Unfortunately, the stairs are not colorable. That's one kind of gripe. Some of our assets are always going to be the same color, but I thought it might be nice to do. Actually, let me see if the path tool can be our friend here. Path tool, we still can't color it, but we can. No, that's not going to work. Yeah, exactly. This is a good chance to, that's, the frescoes can show kind of images of what went on here. I'm going to go with his dried heads option here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to extend, going back to that earlier conversation on sort of winding our way through. Let's go ahead and thinking in terms of like classic mystery spaces, that we would have in uh, ancient places. Let me go ahead and this is going to get a little complicated, but so I'm going to go ahead and stretch our way down here again. So we're now going to have the passage winds back around. I need to actually, this is going to be some complex wall design here. And that is not what I wanted to do, but it'll work out in the end because we're just going to go ahead and step. All right, edit points. We're going to go ahead and make this wall thicker because we're now going to extend it down here. And I'm probably going to regret having done this. So let me get rid of that. And actually going to get rid of this. Because we're going to do some changes here. So going into the using your creepy heads idea, Daniel, your dried heads for your creepy room. I'm not going to go with a creepy room, but we're going to go with a creepy passage. So what I'm going to do is we're going to go ahead and place some alcoves along our walkway here. And right now, just to kind of remind folks what I'm doing tool-wise, this is editing points in the wall tool. And then I guess we'll do one more down here. And so what I'm doing is I'm clicking on these lines to create new reference points. And then I'm currently got it snapped to the grid, so I'm able to pull it around. And so what we have here is we have a hallway that has a bunch of alcoves. And just because my brain doesn't like unfinished business, I'll go back and uh, draw in our wall texture. And right here, I'm just tracing my wall and oops, forgot a little corner there. That's okay. And then we'll do that over here as well. And there we have a hallway. All right, so we have a couple things we can use in our um, uh, assets here. We've got the decor tab in assets, which gives us a number of different heads. We get animal heads and like. We also, however, have the creature tab, which gives us whole monsters and stuff. Not a ton, but some stuff that's useful. Like I was able to simulate chickens and cows and stuff. There is also I believe, a skeleton tab where we have some skulls. So we're going to use those in a second, but first we need to actually give them something to sit on. So I'm going to, where is it? Fountain? No, we don't want a fountain. Admin? No. Armor, bar, barrel, bed. I'm just going to flip through some of these. Blacksmith, blood. The blood looks weird because, of course, we colored things differently. Um, Bridge is kind of a cool one because you can draw some really complicated bridges. You can put broken sections in them, and it's also nice if you don't want to have to mess with leveling with kind of coming up with levels. You could literally like do the floor in a water tone and just add the bridge assets over it. We got broken. This is always good for dungeons as well because we could have doors that are bashed in and on the ground. Bushes, cages. We don't need cages. Camp, cart, cave. What I am looking for is something that looks, actually, you know what? I'm dumb. All right, let's just go to pillar. So what we're going to do is we're going to select a slightly decorative looking pillar design. I don't like that one. Let's go with something. Let's do this. Something that is kind of weird and creepy and should tell our players that these are slightly special. And in our alcoves here, we will have these. And then go to the skeleton tab. And yes, these skulls are huge, but we can shrink them down. And we can have a series of skulls that are looking in at our guests. Now, these are symbolic and don't have to necessarily be indicative of everything that we've had come along. So I would say, keeping with our theme too, we probably want to put um, another brazier somewhere in here, probably in the corner, like we've had elsewhere. That way we just keep the lighting going. Or not. Let's say that beyond this point, there is no light. They would have had to carry their own light through. So we have a wide passage here. We have skull. We have these heads on either side. We can leave out any other decoration and make it simply these creepy heads that are looking at you. In the description of the dungeon, we could describe whatever specifics we're doing there. But yeah, so the that's so weird. Okay, well, good thing I'm not on camera. My camera seems to be having problems. All right. Anyways, from here we then can decorate the floor. We can, if we were doing a dungeon that had been open and was lost and had been tromped around a bit on, we could do everything from like throwing skeletons out on the floor. That would be a really big skeleton. But like we could put skeletons in the passage. We could put giant horrible bones in the passages. We could do piles of skulls because what else is more fun than piles of skulls? We're not going to do that right now because we're not quite there yet. But the other option, to be honest, would be to have it to where this dungeon has already been broken into and has been explored. I mean, we could change a few features here. The party finds it's already broken open. They explore in, and then we would if we're getting into the dungeon dressing, we would dress it very differently because we could have the curtains would probably not be there. They all have gone to tatters. We could put a broken table in here, or we can still have the table. We could have bones and cobweb features and stuff like that. So we could do that. There's a lot of options. So I would say after entry, walking past the frescoes, walking past these heads, perhaps each head is the head of some hero or philosopher or whatever. We then enter into a chamber. Um, and at this point, maybe we should go ahead and make it something pretty impressive. We have yet to really do a large, impressive chamber. So let's go ahead and let's see. I want to extend this out, break that in. You know what? Actually, let's bring this out here like this for now. Yeah, we could. I mean, magic mouths could have warnings, or I mean, even weird. I mean, they could be praying. They could be reciting prayers. As part of the spectacle of entering the temple. I mean, we're almost kind of presenting here um, this sort of in its original use, like a magical procession. Like this would have been the way that our this would have been the way that our priests and stuff would have proceeded in this going along through these chambers as they proceeded. Why is that being so weird? There we go. As they proceeded into the temple, they had to go through all these things. Well, and then certainly that could be presented that way because maybe they're made up, sort of post-mortem cosmetic work that makes them look, in that kind of weird way that you're trying to dress them up to make them look fancy, but they end up just looking creepy. So this chamber, I'm going to go ahead and make nice and big and long. I think what I'm going to do here. And we have run into our first problem where we run into, see this interior wall space. This is kind of one of the problems with using the wall tool like this. And my cat talking to me. Clearly, I am not paying enough attention. Why don't we just do this? This is a separate wall. It's the same wall. All right, so we're going to go ahead and do this for now. Whether or not this becomes a room over on the other side, who knows? But right now, I want to go ahead and... Yes, cat, you are a cat. You are there, I hear you. All right, so we will create a big chamber here that's going to have maybe some sort of an offshoot, or maybe we move this side entrance down here to the side. There we go. So we have this massive chamber. And for whatever reason, Dungeondraft has decided to lock up on me. All right, fun. All right, gonna save. And reload. Because sometimes Dungeondraft is dumb. So for this to be a fun dungeon, it can't be empty. It can't be devoid of enemies. So we have to decide where we're going to put this. Is this initial temple level just going to be sort of a cakewalk with a bunch of traps and mysteries? Or is there going to be a monster in here somewhere? If there is a monster in here somewhere, then it has to, I mean, if we're using anything short of Gygaxian logic, it needs to be here for a reason. Um, kind of like our bug monster is a guardian. Um, so I would say we got a large chamber here, so we're gonna first of all lay in some more pillars because, well, we need to keep the roof from falling in. So we will. I say we'd go ahead and do this. We'll do 10 feet in on each side, 10 feet apart. And that should give us what we need for roof support. Um, well, Mar Hockman, I'm not on the Legion of Myth Discord, and so I'm not quite sure what you referred to, what you're referring to. But yeah, Gygaxian logic, regardless. So here's the thing: with Gygaxian ecosystems, there isn't an ecosystem, but at least in the end, your dungeon makes sense. Uh, you have in that's not exactly true. I mean, Wizard didn't do it. It was just a way to. A lot of people forget the key thing about one key thing about D&D, and that's that D&D was, if nothing else, a game. And so dungeons are play spaces, and to play in them and not have them be boring as fuck, you have to have things there. So that means you're going to have monsters, you're going to have traps, you're going to have things to do. If you present everything logically, it becomes much more difficult. Because of course we're sort of facing that here. We're in a situation now where we've got, and why is this not? It does not want to zoom out. I don't know what the heck happened. There we go. All right, cool. All right. So we have a big chamber. This thing is like 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, about 70 feet long and 80 feet across. Um, so it's a pretty big chamber. This is probably some sort of grand chamber where we'd maybe have a dais or something, or some sort of holy space. In fact, we can even simulate that by placing. So what I'm going to do here, we're going to go ahead and put at either end here, we're going to put a staircase. And then I'm going to show you some level drawing effects here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create got a railing, and then see the shadow below. We're going to create a little bit more of an enhanced shadow by going into the path tool. I'm going to select shadow. Now, how thick is it at this point? We're snapped to grid, so I'm going to unsnap the grid. We're going to go ahead and draw our shadow. I forgot this thing gets a little springy. So there, we now have extra shadow, which kind of alludes to this particular space being above the rest of the chamber. Yeah, Mar Hockman, I'm aware. And honestly, um, yes, that's a thing. They were the original dungeon was very much a metaphysical space, but they've evolved. And dungeons very quickly became spaces that that people tried to design to make sense because they the game was evolving beyond sort of gamist uh its gamist roots. So just to make sure these pillars look like they are above the stairs, I'm gonna tweak them to where they're actually one layer up. Um so Mar Hockman, those base concessions come from the simplistic view and the generalized abstracted views that were carried over into Dungeons and Dragons from the previous wargaming elements. Uh, Over time, refinements occurred, and the game became more than what it had been because we learned to do things in different ways. And so the idea that something had improvision just by the merit of having improvision um, kind of went out the door. Um, and I'm not mad, and I'm not don't get me wrong. I don't have any problem with what you're saying. It's just that yeah, it's kind of at this point it is neither here nor there, and I'm trying to get rid of this wall here because I drew it wrong. There we've come a long ways, baby. Is I guess what I'm trying to say. Original D&D concessions and were just that. They were things to make the game work based on how we understood that they should work, um, based on a limited cross section and experience with systems. Um, so yeah, I mean, there's no puzzle. That's the thing. Is so there is no puzzle. There's simply a level of proficiency and evolution of design, just like any other, um, really just like anything else. It is only as good as its most recent iteration, and we only understand something, and we can only design something up into the to our most recent point of reference. So I don't think there was any other logic to Gygax other than trying to create uh, a playable space. Because at its most fundamental level, D&D was designed as a game, and it was played as a game. It was not played as much for story or for experience. And by experience, I mean like the experience of playing as much as it was for gaming. It's so funny because a lot of us grew up with this question of, well, how do you win D&D? I think early on there was very much a sense that you could uh, win D&D, and that winning came from beating the dungeon because the dungeon was a game. The dungeon was very gamist. And so modern iterations of the game have strayed away from that. And um, I think for good and for bad, a lot of players forget about the gamist aspects, and so therefore they get caught up too much in the story and the whys and the hows and the what's my motivation and all of that. When But at the same time, we also have more advanced, interesting stories and adventures. So um, And this is a good point. We can definitely have things that have crept in over time. Um, the map, of course, is not going to show every little rock and crevice. If this is a temple where things were done at points, there's very likely been maybe some thinning of the veil between dimensions. Um, I would say it's probably a little bit dismissive to call it random nonsense, um, because there was still a fair amount of planning that went in. It didn't have an ecology or make sense in that regard, but it was still planned, and there were still things of thoughts of a lot of thoughts like, if I place this here, then my players are going to have to deal with this later. I've got to create some sort of choke point. I've got to create quiet spaces where the players can regroup. um, I remember how interesting it was to find out that so many early dungeons included places where you ran into captives, and evidently that comes from a desire to have quick and easy places to insert replacement players or replacement character for when characters would die in the dungeon. um, I think we should have a door separating this hallway to this grand chamber. So I'm going to go ahead and just lay in a couple of double doors, and I gotta change them from anchored to freestanding. We'll put them in the middle here. There we go. We got a double door. All right. So here we are in our big chamber. We've got our dais up here. A dais is probably going to need an altar. So let's go ahead and going to show off the magic tab. Now the magic tab is kind of useful. It has some of the stuff here is from other tabs, but it's collected into this nice useful space to give us things that we can place that are all of a magical nature. Um, for example, we can have a nice altar, although I'm not quite sure I like that. I don't feel it fits the rest of it. Um, where was that table? Alphabetical things are a thing. Table. All right. So what we're going to do is we're going to put up this funky thing. I think this really works nice. It's going to be a nice, I'm going to shrink it down though, because that is big. So here we have a nice altar table at the top. Down below, we have this funky space. I'm going to go ahead and also borrow something. This is going to be a little bit of uh, uh, some layering, I guess is the term I'm looking for. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to borrow this kind of Bernie looking thing with the coals on it. And I'm going to set this to being under. And unfortunately, because we've got, all right. So because this is actually the floor, I can still do this. Watch. All right. So because what I want to do is I want to set a bed of coals below our altar here. So what I'm then going to do is I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to, let's see, I'm going to go ahead and grab our table here. We're going to raise this up a level and put it up 2 levels. That way, when I do this next thing, that's the pattern. All right, so I think we can get away with this. All right, so this is our fancy space. So it is going to be, I'm going to keep it sort of our sandy color, but I'm now going to draw this to where this upper altar chamber area has a different floor. I don't like that. That is too fancy. Is this any better? No, it is not. That does not fit either. We'll go with this. But we will undo that and we will make it a sandy color. And then we can go ahead and do this. All right. The reason I did that is so I can now, so that we now have a layer that I can select, right? And then I can actually move it up a level, which I should have done first. Oops. All right. So we're going to draw this. It's going to be on level 2. And our item here should be on level 1. So when I draw this layer, and my cat won't shut up. All right, so when I draw this layer, it should cover up. There we go. It covered up our the stray bricks that were associated with that brazier down below. Later, Daniel. All right, so now we have an altar space. We have stairs up. We have a railing here. We have kind of a dais above with a table. We have burning coals in the middle. We have basically, we've created a large chamber space. Now, I'm going to see if this works. I'm going to try and build a room. And my cat is just going nuts. All right. I'm going to build a small chamber off to the side here to be like a priest's quarters, I guess is what I'm looking at. And that didn't work. I didn't think it would. All right. So, bummer. Well, gonna have to edit some points here again. All right. So, we are going to dig in and creating this space here. To have the chamber, and what we can do is we can actually continue this consistency of design by having the space up here have a different patterning to the rest of the dungeon space. So we're going to actually cheat here and draw in some floor spaces. So this would be, say, and I'm trying to keep in mind wall thickness to where we can still have, this idea that these walls still have to support the structure above. And then what I can do is I can go back in and I can draw in some new walls to frame this space. And no, crazy. It went out of control. I can draw in some new walls to frame this space. There we go. And then so we can put a door. Let's see. We will have a stone framed door. I don't like that. We'll do just a basic door. A door. I said a door. Anchored. Here we go. Door. All right. So we have a door. It separates this main chamber here. We can actually place another door. Place another door there. Place another door there. So now we're starting to partition as we have this big grand chamber. We got a place for the priest to sit there and go and do his thing. Guardian Familiar would be a good monster. Yeah, I'm refraining from monsters here, but we can think about monsters in this space. Guardian Familiar would be a good thing to have here. Because of course we don't want to put everything on the decoration. The change in the floor also kind of changes the nature of the space. We now know that we've transitioned into a sort of new set of connected chambers. So in our priest's quarters here, I am going to decorate this with, we're going to go to the admin, and I'm actually going to do, we will assume that our priests were knowledgeable men. Oh man, because everything's on a different level, layer, I got to build above that layer now. Meh. That's what I get. All right, so I'm going to unsnap it. We're going to shrink this down a bit. So in our priest chambers, we will have a globe. They were knowledgeable men. And then we can actually go here. We have shelves we can put in. So we can say that there are shelves, perhaps a cabinet or something. Or we can do, this is nice because we got some very good separations. We got desks. So we'll do a simple, like, actually, let me put a chair in first because the thing will auto layer things where you select. So I'm going to put a simple, well, not a simple, this is a priest chamber. We'll do a chair, not a giant chair because we're not doing a hill giant priest. But we'll put a chair here, put it off kilter. And yes, this is maybe a little bit more dressing than a lot of people want to do for a dungeon. But again, we're looking at something that can very much help you in shorthanding your creative process when you're describing it to your players. But yeah, so you've got an entry chamber that then has sort of an office space, and then beyond, we could say we can give the priest a bed, and just so it stands out a little bit, we'll change the color. Nothing too huge. Obviously, we can scale that down. We'll put the bed here, and then because he's a priest, he might actually have, say, his own bath. No. And so we can put a bath over here. Actually, I'll just use this one. And so he's got like a bath chamber where he can do his thing. And this gives us some interesting space. Tabletop tap room, you are correct. It is a dungeon, not a dollhouse. But again, we are designing a dungeon using this tool and taking advantage of everything that it has. So when, especially considering VTTs are in play a lot nowadays, because I don't play at tables, this allows me to not have to repeat 1,000 times what's in this room. Where is that thing? The players know that there's a fountain there. They know that there's a bath there. They know that there's a desk there. They can operate based on the information that's on the map. And so I don't spend as much time having to repeat myself. And because I can't, it's so, yes, players should be paying attention and players should be writing things down. However, spatial awareness, oh, yeah, that is true. Similar thing with physical terrain. When you're building physical terrain, you do want to make sure that you're limiting yourself. Um, I guess the big thing is, like, I feel like a lot of DMs expect players to have this, even at tabletops. When you're doing your face to face, I feel there's a unfair expectation that players should be asking way more questions than is reasonable, because in real life we don't ask questions of our environment. We notice them and we perceive them just because of our senses. No DM has the time and the energy to describe everything so complete that every single piece of information that would be gleaned in an environment is transferred to the players. Nor can the players be accountable for remembering every last detail, when a real person in that environment would just be able to look around real quick and notice. So I as a not not directed at you specifically, Tabletop Tap Room, who is Gedeon from his channel, Tabletop Tap Room. Um, uh, but to that point, I feel like it's really not a bad thing if players are asking things on the fly and you're reminding them. I see way too many GMs get grumpy and curmudgeonly about, well, you should have paid attention. I wouldn't have to pay attention if I was actually there. But having stuff on the board like this very much does allow people to know stuff that's there. Those things are readily available. That way they can say, I'm going to go and jump up on the dais here. I'm going to go ahead and, hide behind that pillar. It's very useful. And it fills in some of the blanks that good old common sense perception that real entities in places, real people in places would have. All right, so we have a priest's chambers. We have another door leading off to the side. If this was indeed a temple complex, we probably would then move our way into, say, lesser priests' quarters, guards. This is a good point, and that's awesome. But there's a lot of DMs who won't mention the display, that there are display cases, and then expect players to just assume that there are. There's also DMs that will mention the display cases up front and then get grumpy when the player asks if he's near a display case. Yeah, it's weird. I mean, and I'm not saying that's a lot of people. It's just a behavior I've seen, and it's something that I don't agree with, because there's just too much of this. It's confrontational. Yeah, and so the thing is, I feel like it's safe to allow players to assume things that are there that make sense. I don't think it's bad for a GM to sit there and go, well, no chandeliers here. And that's fair. You could say that place is a little, it's understated. There are no chandeliers. It's lit by wall sconces and the fireplace alone. Um, uh, and you know, so it's interesting when you run into stuff like that, because I don't feel that um, any DM who makes relatively mundane things like that a constant hazard to the point where you're fearful is perhaps overdoing it. Because there is such a thing as a mundane display case. If I'm playing Call of Cthulhu, there's going to be a mundane display case. Let's see. It's actually noon, so I do need to be ending the stream. I just realized that the hour has crept up upon us. Thank you, everybody, for coming by and kind of watching me play with Dungeondraft and getting a little bit of explanation on how it works. I'm going to go ahead and finish up this dungeon because I'm having fun. And then I will export it to PDF. No, not PDF, but like to a image file, and I'll make it available for folks. I'll put it over on like the Discord or the Elf Fate Facebook, or both of them, and then you guys can use it. And somehow my outer wall got changed, and now I'm pissed, and I got to change up before I go. All right, hold on just a second. This outer wall should not be those. It should be, no, stop. Undo. there's one thing that you will run into in this is that sometimes it wants to change your wall style. No! Why did it do that? That's so annoying. Ah, yeah. Okay, I see what's going on. Somewhere along the lines, my settings got changed. So there we go. Back to normal. All right. Anyways, I'm gonna go ahead and save this. I'll continue working on this, and when it's done, I'll go ahead and post it. Maybe we'll do another stream. But I very much am happy that folks showed up. I'm glad you all did. This is what we got so far. To, I mean, this big open space will get filled in at some point, but you know, I feel like this is a good start to a very playable dungeon. And have fun, folks. And I'll see you next week. And get out and game.